Hey gang, I want to do a really quick video, just kind of walking through how I was working on this dating card game of mine, and how I got from this spreadsheet of a whole bunch of different cards to this layout of actually having cards on an A4 sheet of paper so I could print them out and easily have them there for a prototype. So part of the reason why I'm making this video is because when I had been working on this stuff and going online to try and find information, I couldn't really find a whole lot. So this feels like it's like that would be particularly helpful to somebody else out there that might be working on a little card game or something like that and wanting to really rapidly get from here's a whole bunch of cards on a spreadsheet to here's a whole bunch of cards on a piece of paper. So it's really important to look at with the spreadsheet here. What exactly I've done in terms of the different titles. So the basic way that this works is that each of these on the top first line are basically a variable name, right? So trait type, card play as, card ability. So these all refer to something that will appear on our actual physical printed card. They've also got this thing over here called card ID, and I'll kind of explain that in a second. So I've made this spreadsheet. I've got a whole bunch of stuff on there. I want to get this into Photoshop and not have to enter all this data in manually because that's going to be massively time consuming, right? So one of the first things you want to do when you've actually finished up this spreadsheet is go to File, and you want to download as, and you want to download it as a CSV. So you can do this from Google Docs, which is what I've done here, or you can do it just from Excel if you want. So I export my CSV, and then the file that I get out of that looks like this. So it's messy, but you've got your variables up the top here, and this is all we really need. So once you get the CSV exported, you don't even need to open it yourself. So obviously, this is what's really important for this is that you will need Photoshop. One of the things I really like with Photoshop is the fact that it does automation very well. So this is the basic card layout that I've got here, right? So I've got a title, an image, which I haven't got actually any images yet, but you can automate those as well. I've got my trait type, the play as, and the description, right? So these are all things that actually appear on here. So the card ability, card play as, card title, and the card type. You'll notice that you don't see on there the card ID, but if you actually look at the unused thing up here, it's actually hidden. It's a layer that we don't actually show because we don't need that card ID, but we do need a layer to store the card ID. So the way this is all done is using these two things, variables and the apply data set. So if I actually open up the data sets and variables here, you will actually see that I've got a whole bunch of different variables assigned to different text boxes. So card ability, card ID, card play as, card title, and trait type. So you can actually set this up really easily in define here. So that's underneath variables define. And in variables define, you have all of the layers that you have access to. So unused ID. So it even actually lists files and folders, which is a little bit annoying, but you can just ignore that. So ID it's got a star next to it because I've assigned a variable to it, right? So text replacement, card ID. So you want to highlight this. Visibility is another thing you can turn on and off. So if you want something on one card visible that's not visible on another card, you can actually make stuff visible. So yeah, so this is what it looks like when we actually have all the variables set up. Then once you have your variables set up, you just go to datasets, and from datasets here you can go import, and you can import that CSV file. I'm not going to do it now. There's nothing really special to that whole process. It's just importing your CSV. Just be aware that you will run into problems if you don't name things the same way. So for example, if I go to my define in datasets and I decide to change card title to just title, for example, and then try to import my CSV, Photoshop will basically say, there's nothing in that CSV file that has a variable called title. It needs to be named the exact same thing. It needs to have capitals in the exact same places. That's all super important. So once you import your CSV, you'll now have a whole bunch of data sets that you can actually play with. So I can go to apply dataset here, and you can actually see all of the different data sets from my spreadsheet in here. So I can just load up any one of them and preview it. You do want preview turned on, otherwise it's just going to show your base thing. And once you actually have it in there, you can just go and apply it. So it's like I wanted to have this card or supply that. So now I'm stuck with that. That's changed all the different text boxes and everything in Photoshop to look like that. From here, it's pretty easy to actually get this out of Photoshop, but it's more difficult to get it out of Photoshop in a format that isn't a .psd. So you go to File, you'll go to Export, and you go to Datasets as files, right? That'll export a whole bunch of PSDs out. You'll get all these PSD documents in a file. They'll have all the different variables and be laid out. So it will look something like this. So one of the super important things I should actually mention, and I did allude to it, but I never actually explained it. So in datasets as files, or is it actually in the import, I should say. So datasets, import. Yes, so in the import dialog for importing a dataset, use first column for dataset names. Do that, because otherwise the first column, if you don't have that ticked, all the datasets are just going to be like dataset 1, dataset 2, dataset 3, dataset 4. Whereas this way, if you import it using use first column for dataset names, if I go and show you the spreadsheet again, so humor, tragedy plus time, I now know exactly what that card is because that's what the dataset name is going to be, right? And this is particularly important when you're actually going to export it to datasets, because you can actually use the dataset name, right? So you'd have attract card underscore, and that'd be humor underscore whatever, right? So then I can actually identify my PSDs, which one is which, really, really quickly and easily. If it's just attract card underscore dataset 1, I have no idea what's written on that card. So having that first column be IDs is really, really, really important. So now you get all those things exported out as PSDs. One of the super easy things to do from there. So you can actually skip this step, but I went through this step. So I wanted to convert all those into PNG files. You can create automation to do that. So I just created a droplet, which was really super easy. So the way you create a droplet is the first thing you want to do is record a whole bunch of different steps. So if you're not actually recorded actions before, it's really quite easy. By default, you should have like this little play arrow thing on your PSD, on your Photoshop interface. So if you click that, you'll not have these actions in there. But to create an action is super, super easy. Just click record. You do actions. So for example, we want to be able to open up a file, save it out for the web. So you'll be like on PC, Control-Alt-Shift-S. Or is it Control-Shift-S? No, it's Control-Shift-S. We want to save this out for the web. So we'll choose a file, a folder to save it into and everything. Save that out. And then that's our whole function, basically. That's our whole action. So you'll see here, it's just one action, export using save for web in whatever folder, PNG format. It automates all that out when you take the action yourself. So once you actually have that done, there's this really cool, neat little thing in Automate called Create Droplet, where basically it creates like a little executable file that when you drag a whole bunch of folders onto it, it will run whatever action you have automated on that droplet for you through Photoshop. Alternatively, you just do it inside of Photoshop using batch. So inside of batch, you would choose card save, you would choose your folder, you would open up that folder and basically just say, take all the PSD files from here and save them out to this folder instead, and it will just run that and save them as PNGs or whatever you have it set as. I won't do a whole big thing about batching and this stuff because this is something there's plenty of information out there for. So once you've done all that, you'll have a folder that looks like this instead. So you'll see that my IDs have carried over because I've just saved them out as their names from the PSD. So tracked card, animals, catch and release is one of the ones in here, right? So we have all these disparate cards now. We have them to scale, and I want to print them out on an A4 sheet of paper so that I can start cutting them out and actually turning them into cards. Now, this is one of the steps that was a little bit weird, and I struggled for a little while to actually figure out how to do it, because again, there's not very many good tutorials on this sort of thing. But it's actually really, really simple. So again, you want to use actions. So I've got a card load action here, right? And basically the way that the card load action works is it opens a file. You Control A to select all. You do a Control C to copy that, and then you literally just close the file, which is really cool that Photoshop actually records those actions, right? So I can probably show an example. So if I go into first draft, into profile cards, and choose a card in here. So you don't need to record the opening action because it will do that for you when you actually just select the folder. So I'm just going to open up the profile card here. And then all I would do for recording the action, so on here, you can see the different steps. But all I need to do is, if I just go and delete all this stuff in here, I'll just delete those. Record, just to show it how it works. So I've got my folder open. I'm going to Control A, Control C, close, and now I'm going to paste it into print template here. I'll hide all these layers and just paste. And that's it. That's all I need to do for that action, right? So now it has recorded all that stuff. It will even actually record which file to actually paste that into. So now, when you run that automated through a folder, so I go to automate batch, and then I've got card load, I've got my attraction cards folder, all this is set up perfectly fine already, and I just click OK, and it's going to open up, copy, paste, open up, copy, paste, open up, copy, paste. And you can actually see them popping up in there as they're getting pasted in one by one. Once you have them all in the Photoshop document and they're at their correct scale and everything, because you're copy pasting, this is one of the things that I kind of struggled with for a while, because when you just place a file, it wants to expand it out and stretch it to the full size of your A4 paper, right? So it will stretch to fit the A4 paper rather than putting it in the other document just to the scale that you created it at. So copy pasting works because when you copy and paste it, it's copying it at that size and pasting it into the new document at the size that you had already set it to, rather than trying to overwrite that size. So this is the way to automate it. Don't use place, because place will just frustrate you. That's what I ended up struggling with for a little while. We should be getting towards the end of this now, because I'm seeing that we've got, getting to the U's now. But once you have everything in there placed, I haven't found a good way to automate actually organizing it on the page, but thankfully for this, it's like, you might, I think in this case I have like 52 cards set up into groups of 9. So you just, organize them out, save that, print it, organize it out, save it, print it, and you just get a whole bunch of different pieces of paper that actually have your cards on them, which is super nice and easy. Yeah, this is actually taking way longer to automate out than it is. I think it's actually automating out based on the trait type. There we go, it's done. Yeah. So now you can see in here I've got all of these different layers. Each one has one of the cards that I've generated. And yeah, that's basically it. So super quick and easy. The most time consuming part in this whole process is creating the damn cards. But once you have the card layout done in Photoshop, it's very, very quick and easy to get from that card layout into a A4 piece of paper where you can print it and start prototyping. So I hope that helps somebody out, because I wish somebody had made this. So if that worked out well for you, then thumbs up. Good luck.